Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 3 of 4, where I am sharing my favorite genius tools with you. So, this week we're going to talk about intuition. And this to me is such an invaluable resource these days because we're really getting to the point where, we just, with what we are desiring in life and how we are all expanding, we just simply can't reason it all out, right? There's just certain things that we just don't have enough time to actually learn as much as we might want to or think our way through things in life. And thank goodness that we don't have to because we have our intuition. So today I'm going to share what is intuition and what is it different than the mind? How do you access it? What are maybe some challenges that you might experience, or that maybe I'll share what I've experienced through the years in trying to work with my intuition. And then what are ways that you can enhance your intuition to really gain access to the superpower that it is. And then I'll share one of my favorite ways of entry into my intuition, which is the use of oracle cards. So while I'm talking, please feel to share comments or questions that you have, and I will make sure that I stop and answer those as well. Okay, I'm gonna take some deep breaths because I've been traveling today and in transition, so I'm excited to share this. And my intention is just to allow you to open yourself if you've never worked with your intuition, to really allow you to maybe open the door to this. And if you're someone that knows your intuition, you're working with it, hopefully maybe I'll share something that will help you deepen your experience with your intuition. So let's start with what is intuition compared to the mind, because I know there can be a lot of confusion as to, like, is this my mind making things up? What even is intuition? So let's start with that. So when we think about the mind works in polarity for the most part, right? It's always evaluating things based on the past and based on risk, right? Of how safe we will be. So the mind knows the past and the mind knows what's happening in the present, and the mind uses the past and the present to extrapolate and predict what might happen in the future. The mind works on knowledge, so it's things that we learned or we've known, or our experiences. So that's the mind. It's very polarized in the way that things are right or wrong, good or bad, safe, unsafe. And the mind, yes, can learn things, but as the mind as evaluator and as support for us, it's always going to have a bias. And the bias would be either your experience that you've had, good or bad, or the bias based on just, again, what you know and what you don't know. Intuition is quite different. So let me first give you some examples of maybe ways in which you probably have already experienced your intuition. So things like getting a hunch to call someone that maybe you haven't spoken to in a while, or to go to a certain place that maybe you wouldn't normally go, and then you might have run into someone, or maybe in talking to that person, there was a synchronicity that happened. Sometimes dreams are ways in which our intuition talks to us. Maybe you had a dream about something and it caused you to want to make a decision, or you got a premonition about something that was going to happen. Our intuition will sometimes tell us that we don't want to do something, or we do, and we don't necessarily have a reason for it, but we just have this knowing of, like, I don't want to do that, or this doesn't feel right. We get sometimes intuitive hits about people. We meet people and there's there's just something about that person that I don't feel safe with, or maybe that I really like, and I don't know what it is, but I just have this good feeling about the person. Those are all ways in which our intuition talks to us. So our intuition is like a super intelligence. So it kind of functions kind of like a mind, but it's a super mind. Because whereas the mind is limited to what it knows and what's experienced, our intuition is kind of timeless in the sense that there are things that we can know and get hits for that we couldn't have known, all the ways in which that would have interconnected. So the example I gave about the hunch to call someone, and that person's like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so glad you called because I really was looking at needing a friend right now. And you're like, how would I have known that? It's energy, right? Our intuition reads through energy. And it's timeless in the sense that sometimes we get the intuitive information to do something or to know something that, again, we don't know all of how we could know that, or we can't predict in the future, but our intuition is kind of timeless in the sense that it's always connecting us with energy. So I love that about the intuition, is that it really isn't based on knowledge. It's more just based on energy and following your energy and connecting you with like energy. So oftentimes our intuition can give us creative workarounds to things. So you might be struggling with something, a problem, or trying to figure something out. And if you allow your intuition to come in, there can be a creative solution of something that your mind could have never come up with because you haven't experienced it. It's something different or new or fresh. Yeah, so it's a knowing. It really is a knowing, different than knowledge. It's a knowing that's experiential. It's a knowing that supersedes rational and logic, which is oftentimes why we dismiss our intuition, because sometimes we'll go, well, why would I go this way? I never go that way. Or I always go to this coffee shop. Why would I want to go to the other coffee shop? It isn't always logical. Or we get the hit to go on a trip or to take a job that we're like, this makes no sense. I don't know why I would do this. Like I would have never normally chosen this. That's generally how the intuition works. It's a feeling. And the intuition can show up in a few different ways, which I'll go over. Its function truly, though, is to support us. It's really to support us in enhancing us with wisdom, which is combines our experience, knows our desires and what we're moving towards, and it's to allow us the wisdom to act in alignment with those desires. It's to help us. So really, intuition is a support. It's really like your intelligence, your timeless, soulful intelligence aligning with you to say, hey, let's find the best approach, the most direct path. And so really for us, that I guess if I had to name one main tool, is to support us in getting to where it is that we're trying to go in life, the experiences that we're looking for, the learnings, the type of life that we're looking for. Intuition really is the pathway for that. What else do I want to say about that? Oh, I had an analogy that came to me. So it's almost like AI in the sense of, AI right now can tell us a whole lot of information based on the past and information that's available. Think if AI was able to actually go into the future and see things. That is more like our intuition. So it's like an enhanced version of an artificial intelligence, in the sense that it knows way more than we can ever know. So if I wanted to be an expert in something, I'd have to take classes and go to school and learn, where our intuition can sometimes enhance us with information or steps or things that kind of bypasses some of that. So we don't have to take as long to sometimes find what it is that we're looking for. It's like a real-time GPS. It's kind of like you remember when before, I'm dating myself here, but I remember when I first moved to Portland forever ago, I remember I had a Garmin that would download the map, right? And it would direct me, but it was based on old maps. So if I wanted to get new maps, I had to update the version, right? Or get another Garmin, I think. Our intuition is always updated. It's always real time. So it's giving us the real time information that we need, like our GPS functions now, where it's pulling off satellites. It can see traffic, it can see what's happening above, and it can direct us. So hopefully you're getting a better idea of what intuition is. How do you access it, right? So if you've never worked with it, how might it show up for you? In my experience, it's shown up in 3 different ways. And there's kind of 3 ways that I still receive intuitive guidance. And see if any of these show up for you or allow you to feel oh yeah, I've had that happen. The first is more body intelligence or body intuition. And when we think about this is not going to be very advanced like an AI answer to something, like an AI prompt to something. This is going to say things like, I don't want to eat that. That doesn't sound good. This sounds good. I'm tired. So it's like the body's way of telling you something doesn't resonate. I'm sure you've had someone offer you something and you just had an instinctual response of no, or an instinctual response of yes. For example, when I'm trying to decide where to eat and someone says, how about this? There's a knowing that I don't want to. Yes, it's mental, but there's also usually an instinctual response to that. That's a way in which our intuition will tell us things. Even things that are going to happen in the future, such as maybe I get an invitation to maybe work with someone or something, and maybe I just have this feeling sense that it isn't a good match, and I don't have any reason for that. I just get the knowing that this may not be a good choice. That is our intuition functioning. So that's one way, is our body intelligence. The next way that we might have that speak to us is through our emotions or our feelings. So with that, we will sometimes have feelings that show up. So if you think about what feelings and emotions, how they operate, is emotions are indicators of our GPS and telling us you're going the right direction, keep going, or you're off path, recalculating route. And so emotions are often telling us intuitively that things are working or not working. So if something innately doesn't feel good, then that is our intuition saying, this isn't working for you. Now, it might work for someone else, but it's not working for you. So our emotions are telling us that something's not right, even if we don't exactly know what that is that's not working. So again, emotions and the physicalness of our intuition, remember, it's not going to be super advanced, and we're not going to get a whole lot of words or reasons. We're just going to get the yes and the no, right? So that's kind of what we're looking for in that intuition. So it's good to pay attention to body responses, things like tension in the body or a restriction in things that open us. Same with our emotions. Pay attention to things that cause emotional reactions that feel good and ones that don't feel right, even if you don't understand it. The third way that intuition has worked for me has been through kind of what we might call like the mind. You might say through my third eye. I call it like the knowing, the universal knowing, and that's that quieter voice. So oftentimes we all have heard it, but we dismiss it because it's quiet. And this is another distinction between intuition and the mind. The mind always has a judgment. It's like that critical voice sometimes. So whereas the mind always has like, you should do this, you shouldn't do this, or this is good, or this is not. Intuition doesn't judge like that. And so when you get an intuitive hit for something, you're going to, in some ways, it will never be a pushy voice. So what I mean by that is that nudge to say, go to a different coffee shop, or you should call this person. It's a quiet voice, and it comes and goes. And sometimes our intuition will stay and we'll keep getting that hit, but sometimes we don't. Like, I know for me, the way my intuition now functions is my creativity. I'll get an idea for something, and if I don't really feed it and kind of pick up on it, it can just kind of move away, and I may not get it again. Same thing with like some of those intuitive hits, right? So sometimes we get them and they stay, and then sometimes they may not. But again, it's a quiet voice, which is why sometimes it's hard for us to connect to it, because we as a society, as a collective, have really superpowered our minds to be kind of in a hierarchy. We put more stock in our mind, right? We put more stock in that than our body intelligence, than our emotional intelligence, than our intuitive intelligence. So oftentimes the mind really quickly to the intuitive guidance will be like, that doesn't make any sense. That's illogical. What's that going to do? It wants a reason. And with intuition, we don't always get that reason until later. And sometimes we never get it. And sometimes we do get those ahas. I can't tell you now that I've trusted my intuition more, how many times my intuition has led me into the most amazing experiences, or to meet people, or to allow me to access information that I would never have received had I not listened to it. Like, my mind would have never gotten behind it per se. So those are the ways in which our intuition shows up. So that's how we access it. Those are the body, the emotions, or we might get it through kind of that download or that hit through our what might feel like our mind. And this voice again is quiet. It's non-judgmental. It's just kind of like a little ping, like, hey, if you want to listen, here's an idea, or here's a hit. So what are the challenges that I've had in my life and that I've worked with other people? Because I get this question a lot with people, and I know when I was first starting to connect to my intuition, this is what happened to me. I wanted it really bad, and I tried really hard. like I would sit there and be like, I want to get intuitive guidance about this. And I'd pick an issue in my life that was like a really complicated, big issue. And I'd be like, all right, what's the intuitive guidance on this? Or I would be really pressed for an answer right away. Not that you can't use your intuition for real-time on the spot guidance, but when you're demanding it, when you're trying really hard, when the effort is kind of this polarized, like I need to have it now or else, or I'm going to try hard because I don't trust that my intuition is available to me. My experience is that we won't get anything but frustration, because that's the energy we're bringing towards it. If it's a quieter voice that we're not used to listening to, if we demand of it, it's just like talking to a person. Like, would you want to talk to someone that demands that you answer them immediately and that you answer them in the way in which they want to hear it? It just isn't good relationship skills. So when you're first working with your intuition, the best way is to approach it with a sense of play, curiosity, and levity. Be light about it. So the way in which I usually do this is I kind of play with my intuition. I say, I'd love some intuitive guidance about this topic. Or, hey, today, intuition, I want to connect to you. I want you to give me some creative workarounds to make the day more easeful. And I just put it out there and I kind of play with, wonder how my intuition is going to talk to me. But my approach to it is very playful, I'm very open to how it will show up. And if you're just starting, I really recommend using this approach because, again, we want to approach it with the energy of curiosity and trust. Because one thing to note about your intuition is that every single one of us is born with intuition. This is nothing that you either have or don't have. Yes, there are people that are more skilled at their intuition, most likely because they're just wired that way or because they've worked with it. But every single person can receive their intuition. It's not a special gift that either, only some people get. But we have to be practiced at it. Just like anything that we want to cultivate a more rich relationship with. We can't just all of a sudden one day expect that it's going to be fluid and, and deliver exactly what we want. It just doesn't usually work like that. So trying too hard, efforting towards it, really what we get is just that feedback right back of more effort. And that will really allow the mind to get in there and say, see, it doesn't work. You don't have intuition. This is all bogus. So I really recommend the lightness, the playfulness, and give yourself space for it. Another way that I find was challenging is that I would often confuse the voice of the mind versus the intuition. Like I would maybe get an intuition or think that I did, and then the mind voice was so quick to judge that's not it, or I'm not doing it right. Just that judgeful voice, and the mind overpowers it. So you can't really control the mind so much, but what I have found to be possible or helpful is to give yourself a lot of space around it. The mind can be very demanding with time and also the pressure of I need this now. And I find with most things in which we're wanting to receive, the demand and the time pressure and the feeling of lack is not super helpful with that. So when I say space around it, I mean have space in your day in which you're just open to listening to that quiet voice, even if for the first little bits of time that you do it, you feel like you're not getting anything. You're just carving out space and you're allowing there to be maybe a listening that's deeper to hear the mind and be able to hear the difference of what the intuition sounds like. And for me, this is what helped, is the more space I gave myself, the more I could hear the tonality of the mind, kind of the way the mind spoke to me. And then I could hear differently how intuition functioned, which was a totally different voice, much quieter, and also just less demanding and obtuse in some ways. Intuition was just kind of a gentle nudge, and the energy of it felt differently. Oftentimes, one of the third things that would happen is I would dismiss it as silly, dumb, or this can't be it. Because sometimes my intuition would say things like, wear something else. And I'd be like, well, this is dumb. Why would intuition care what I wear? Or it would be something like, don't do this normal thing I do in the morning, or eat something different. And I'd be like, well, this is dumb. This is not what intuition's for. I want it for this. Because intuition, again, isn't biased. Like, there's no hierarchy of like, this is a better way to use your intuition than this. Like, intuitive guidance is a superpower wisdom of your whole life, right? So it does care about what you eat and how you sleep and who you relate with and how you spend your time, but it cares about it all equally. So it might first have the best access point through things in which you're not so attached to the outcome or the answer. So for me, it was things like clothing or food or directions or maybe how I spent some of my time, because maybe I wasn't so attached and in a pattern where the mind was so active. So don't dismiss what you get. And then two, I think the last reason that it was difficult for me was that I didn't have enough space in my day to hear it. Really the entry point of intuition is stillness. Can we be still enough to actually hear what's going on and to receive it? Because if we're so busy and distracted and overstimulated and always having so much noise around us, right, how can we truly hear a gentle, quiet voice when there's always noise around us, right? There's phones and TVs and laptops and watches and people and music and the sounds. Wow, there's just so much stimulation and so much coming at us that naturally we have to filter. And so sometimes we don't have enough stillness or space to hear it. So that's where I was going back to. I really highly advise having some space in your day for this. All right, so let's talk about some ways to enhance this. Those are all the ways that was challenging. So how do I get around it? And how do I find people that I work with get around it? So one is to invite in that sense of play and curiosity and levity around it. Two, create those spaces. So like I would recommend setting a timer for 15 minutes and every day for a stretch. You just sit and you listen and you say, I'm open to any intuitive guidance that wants to come to me. And maybe it'll come to you through journaling. Maybe you will kind of receive it. Some people kind of have a knowingness. Some people actually, like I actually receive words with my intuition. And so I can get it sometimes easily writing or listening. Some people see. So be open to how your intuition wants to come to you. Intention. Oh my gosh. Probably the most helpful way in which we can connect to our intuition is to have the intention. And I like to say, I'm willing. I'm willing to hear my intuition. I'm willing to explore what this could do for me. Like even just that statement is so light. It's so open. It's so curious, rather than I need an answer right now. So intention is really important. That routine. I find, again, the ritual of like every morning I sit and after I meditate or do yoga, I always just sit for at least 10 minutes, maybe longer, sometimes an hour. And I just listen. I just listen to what's coming to me, and sometimes it comes through emotions or my body, or I have a knowing, or I just get a flash idea. And I can't tell you guys, like now that I do that, my intuition knows that that's an opportunity to speak to me. And it does. But it certainly didn't in the beginning. In the beginning, it was just like a mind wrestle of like to-do list things coming up and not that spaciousness. So it is something that has to be cultivated. And I find that routines and rituals, a ritual of intention can be helpful. So again, that intention, maybe you light a candle, maybe you do something significant. Maybe you say, I'm willing to hear you. And then you listen. Yeah, and then I would say another way to enhance and start is just to start with listening to your emotions and your physical responses to things, because I promise you, your intuition is already in operation in your life. You just may not see it as that because you might have a different idea of what intuition is, or you might just dismiss it. I certainly know I did for many years. I would get those body instincts and I'd be like, my mind would be like, nope, we're doing this anyway. Or I'd get the emotions and my mind would say, nope, we're bypassing that. We are learned to condition ourselves to be a certain way and to should our way through life. And it takes a whole lot of deconditioning to do that, and a gentleness and a grace to be able to try new things. Okay, another way that enhances it is breath work. I usually connect to my intention after I've done like yoga or breath work because I'm in a state change. So even if you did just 10 deep breaths or alternate nostril breathing, or any type of, I find Satali breath, which is a cooling breath, where if you can roll your tongue, you would roll your tongue. Otherwise, you can breathe through like you're sipping in through a straw. Doing that on the inhale and on the exhale, man, I find that to be a really helpful breath because it's very cooling to the system, which the mind can get us really hyperactive. So that can be helpful as breath work. My other favorite, and I talked about this last week, were oils. So my favorite oil these days for intuition, this is me, is blue tansy. I spoke about that last week because when I sniff blue tansy, it's a playfulness. I often also find the citrus oils like sweet orange, neroli. What else do I like for that one? Mandarin sometimes, even a lemon. I find that those types of oils just invoke that, I don't know, that sweetness, that playfulness. So I place an oil, so like I would put a drop right here on my finger, and then I would just put it right here and hold a light touch for maybe 1 to 3 minutes and just breathe deeply, make my intention, smell afterwards. And you know, the cool thing about oils is that they provide that instant state change. They snap you out of the mind and into an experience. And that really is what the intuition needs of us, is the opportunity for an experience. So I find that those are really great ways to enhance. So the last way and that I found is using oracle cards. So what are oracle cards? You might have seen these in stores, like metaphysical stores. In Portland, my new favorite store is Soulful. It's in my neighborhood in Selwood. But if you Google that or oracle cards, gosh, you can get them on Amazon too. So here's my favorite deck lately. It's the Mother Mary Oracle. Another one that I used through the years is the Ganesha one. You guys, there's like an oracle card deck for so many different things. There's an Earth card oracle deck. If you watched my Virgo season overview, I drew cards for that. There's so many. So pick an oracle card deck that resonates with you. And so what do these cards do? These are cards with messages. Sometimes there'll be pictures and there's not a lot of words. Sometimes there are specific words or principles like perspective or ground yourself or take a time out. There's lots of different messages. So when I first started with oracle cards, I would just draw one every day. And I would just draw one and I would say, what's a good theme or what's something I need to know about today? And I would just draw the card and I would read it. So let's do that right now. So if I had my Mother Mary, and this is actually something I do every day, is this is how I do it. I literally shuffle the cards and they jump out. I know you can't see, I'm gonna try and let you see. Oops, see, one just jumped out. That's how I do them. Other people fan them, like they'll fan them and they'll say pick one. So if you look at my card deck, this is the image. I'll let you see. Can you see that? So you can just pick an image that you're drawn to too. And then this is what this one says: Our Lady of the Sacred Hearth. There are times when growth must happen so that you can continue your journey home. For you, beloved, this is such a time. Remember, you are not only being guided away from what has been, but also towards a new manifestation blessed by Our Lady. This is a secret gift, soon to be recognized, and it is instrumental in manifesting your complete spiritual fulfillment. That definitely speaks to me. So that's one way I can do. I can just draw one card and just see what it says. I've also drawn a card and just looked at the picture and I've asked myself, what comes to me of this picture? Like, what speaks to me? Like, what are the colors? How do the colors make me feel? Are there any symbols that I like? You could also ask a question, and I do that many times, especially when I was working with my Ganesha deck. I would say something like, maybe I was having a relationship struggle, or maybe I was, stuck on something at work, and I would say, what's the best way through this, or what might help me? So I would shuffle. And so, and I would just see what came out. And this got wholeness. So I might look at the card. But what I'll say also is that most oracle card decks have a book that has some guidance in there. So you can read about like that specific card for wholeness, which I just dropped all over the floor. I find that, so when I first started reading oracle cards, I would read what it said. I would say the decks that I work with now, I don't necessarily do that because I've either used them enough that they speak to me, but also I want to trust what comes to me first. And if I'm stuck, I'll read that. I'll read what comes. So you can ask questions. Many of the decks will have like a card, they'll give you like some layouts, like here's a 3-card spread where it's like past, present, future, or all kinds of different. Every book is different, and I make up my own. I'll make up my own, like this is about like this topic, this is the obstacle, this is what I may not be seeing, this is what will help me. Honestly, there's so many different ways. Many of you may have heard of tarot cards and readings. Oracle cards are kind of a form of that. Tarot is a special type of cards that have a major arcana, and then they have the 4 suites with different cards. So they're a specific type, although all the card decks might be different, and there's different types of tarot. It's the same kind of thing. I don't read tarot myself. That's never been something that I've been able to do, but I love those readings. And I do have a set of cards that I do play with some. I just am not as intuitive with those for some reason. So I love getting those readings from other people. But this can be a great way to enhance your intuition because it's a way to, one, connect into something, a super intelligence, and then to allow yourself to start to receive in guidance. And really, this doesn't matter what your spiritual beliefs are. This is really a tool for self-awareness and a tool for self-reflection. And that's really the pathway towards really knowing ourselves and being able to have the clarity we deserve. Is we have to have time with ourselves, and we need things that allow us to see differently, to have ways to reflect on ourselves and our life and our desires. And so I find that oracle cards are an amazing way to do that. And again, you can purchase them anywhere. Most of them will have instructions. And I would say, like, play around with how you're drawn to use them. Maybe you do one every day. I do them at the new moon and the full moon. I do them when I have questions or I feel stuck on something. So they can be a great pathway to connect your intuition. Okay, so I've already gone over 30 minutes. So I'm going to close us out. I would love to hear from you if you have questions about intuition. I do have a video on my YouTube channel that talks about the difference between intuition and the mind, so you could check that out. And you could always just send me a message and ask a question. But truly, if you have the intention to connect to your intuition, if you're willing to be open, if you're willing to trust yourself and act on your intuition, because if you're getting it, but then you ignore it all the time, right? It's going to be hard to develop that relationship. So trust on the things that you can. Maybe you're not going to trust it to quit your job, but maybe you'll trust it to go a different way or to call someone or to do something different. Really, if I could leave you with anything, it's 1, be open, be curious, be light with it. 2, trust it. Trust that your intention and willingness to receive it, it will be there. It's because what we ask for is always given the moment we ask, if we're open to receive it. And just be willing. Be willing, be open, and trust that you have intuition, that it's an amazing superpower that truly will give us. It really is the future for how we can navigate life, because we just can't simply know enough. We just simply can't weed through the massive amounts of information that there are. And so this is the way that we internalize anything in life and know if it's for us, if it's not for us, and the way forward. So I hope I've given you some good things to think about, to explore within yourself. And I truly hope that you can harness this super intelligence, because it has truly changed my life in the best of ways. It's an invaluable resource that I would never want to operate without. Because when I go back to just using the mind, I feel so limited in how I can navigate my life. And when I use my intuition, I'm so resourced. I feel so supported, and I feel so connected to the universal intelligence that's in nature, that's in each of us, that connects us to each other. It's just a really beautiful way of remembering our timelessness, our universal nature, our unlimitedness. So thank you for joining me. It's super fun to do these and to share things that I love. Next week, we're going to talk about energy routines and practices that you can do every day that will enhance your life, that will allow you to feel more connected to yourself, make better decisions, feel more clear and vibrant. So I hope you'll join me for that, friends. Blessings. Thank you. Thank you. And I'd love to hear from you. Have a wonderful evening, friends. Take care.